Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. The Derry Townhouse is accepting applications for a vacant housekeeping position. The previous housekeeper, Mrs. Victoria Webster, reportedly quit after receiving a tip in the amount of $1.25. Afterwards, she spent the night at the Silver Dollar. Eyewitnesses told us Mrs. Webster was challenging patrons to high-stakes coin tosses. Mrs. Webster seemed to have a sixth sense for calling heads or tails, winning every toss and escalating each win by offering double or nothing odds. Her estimated total winnings are said to be in the 100,000s. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio. Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I am one of your hosts, CM Alexander, alongside Joshua Kahn.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are back with another short story out of Everything's Eventual, Luckey Quarter, and Josh is leading the discussion.
Luckey Quarter is straight out of the gate, feels like it doesn't belong in this collection. Am I alone there?
You are not alone, and the internet seems to largely feel the same way.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a lot of negative comments about this story, not liking it and it not seeming like it goes with everything else.
That's interesting because the through line for me is thanks to Riding the Bullet, because we dealt so much with diving into single parent and child relationships. So having very recently read Riding the Bullet, now reading this was like getting the mom's side of the story in a strange way. I
kind of felt that too.
Yeah,
actually.
awesome.
Yeah, because I thought of Riding the Bullet when I was making my notes.
Nice.
It's like it did, we'll talk about it, but it did I was having some emotional things happen while I read it. And it's like 4 pages long.
I think it's the shortest story in this whole book.
Yeah.
So let's dive into Luckey Quarter. Our protagonist is Darlene. Darlene is a maid at this motel in Nevada, Carson City, which is outside of Las Vegas. And she, like all of the other maids, visits their rooms and leaves an envelope that they call the honey pot. And they all leave it in different places, but Darlene sees that it's not where she left it on this day. And she opens it. What's inside her honey pot, Sam?
It is so her lucky day. She finds a quarter in it. And there's a lot about where she chooses to leave her envelope versus where everybody, her coworkers do and everything. And it was a weird little detail, but it was effective in making me wonder, what was going on when it was moved. It was such a weird little short moment.
What do you think there was a theory behind where she places her honey pot?
I think so, because one put it in front of the TV, right?
Yep. One puts it under the remote. One put it in front of the bathroom mirror.
Yep. And she always props it up against a telephone, which, okay, this was written originally in 95, I think, or mid to late 90s.
Oh, yeah. The phone was actually important in the hotel room back then.
Yeah. But yeah,
Is that why, you think? Because you're more likely to use the phone, so you'll have to pick it up at some point?
Oh, yeah, because I assume what they're all doing is putting it in the place that they think is the most obvious, so that a guest can leave them a tip. Were you thinking about all of your behaviors in a hotel and tipping and stuff while reading this?
Honestly, no, not even a little.
Oh, I did. I overthought every moment. Man, did I do anything shitty? Not shitty like she'll talk about, but I wonder if I should have left that towel there that one time. Was that rude?
I have always had someone else who, if I'm traveling and have been in a hotel, someone else is always taking care of the tip because I'm usually paying for the hotel. So I've never had a moral dilemma with tipping at a hotel or motel. It's never happened in my existence.
I didn't know you're supposed to tip when they cleaned your room. Because the
I mean,
hotel is so expensive.
it's
But
like
if they left an envelope, I'd be like, oh, yeah.
I mean, not daily, but on the exit, like sometimes throwing out like a 10 or a 20, depending on what decade you're in.
Yeah, me too.
No, you left something creepier in your motels.
I did. I left the note from The Mist.
I love that so much.
Someday a Stephen King fan is going to be cleaning that room after. They're like, hell yeah.
Right. Now, Darlene is like many of these maids working this job. It's a necessity.
Yeah.
It's not a glamorous job. She's working this job because her husband left the family, 5 years ago, if I remember right. Her daughter, Patsy, is 13, and she needs braces. Her son, Paul, is 7 years old, 7 or 8, and he's constantly sick with the sniffles, and his birthday's coming up, and he really wants a Sega, which, good choice, my dude. That's what I picked.
Yeah.
I went Sega over Super Nintendo. And she's a single mom just trying to make ends meet. And so when she gets this quarter dropped into her hand, she laughs so she doesn't cry.
Yeah, and it makes a point to say that that's very much her personality, which makes me really sad.
Yeah. She is immediately such a sympathetic character because you know that she's been dealt a bad hand, but that doesn't affect her work ethic and doing what needs to be done. She's still a strong mom.
Yeah.
There's also the theory of how much they would, every time she walks into a room, she always thinks there's going to be $100 in there, which I really like. A little positive thinking in case somebody won big at the casinos.
Yeah, because apparently I know that happens, that you sometimes tip good. But if somebody wins big, they're more likely to leave the chambermaid a really nice tip, and she's heard. I don't think it's happened to her, has it?
No.
But she's heard of it happening to others.
I hate the term chambermaid.
I know. Is that offensive?
I don't think so.
Do you think it actually happened to anyone else she knows? Or is this like a myth?
Oh, no. It happens to people here where we live. We have some casinos here locally, listeners. And I know some people who have bartended or poker dealers. And if people win big, they've said they've gotten just massive tips. So I would imagine that gratuity would spill over to the housekeeping
You think this
staff.
hotel is like one of the, because it's not one of the really nice ones, but you think it's like busy enough that, I guess I mean like not does that actually happen in reality, but is this just something they tell each other, but it's never actually happened to any of them? Because it almost describes this as like a rundown. It's not rundown, but
it's like it's where you'd stay if you can't afford to stay in the city and you're just traveling for a day. It seems like a stopover kind of place.
And I think she describes it as probably one of the nicest places like that where you would just stop over for a time.
Yeah, they only have the single slot machine in the actual motel. But there are casinos nearby because eventually we're going to go to one.
Yeah.
So after she is looking at this quarter, she also realizes there's a note inside there. CM, do you remember what that note says?
The note says something to the effect of, I don't remember the exact words, but this is a lucky quarter. Truly lucky, and like it's your lucky day or something. They're like congratulating her.
Yeah, it's the second part of it. It's true. Lucky you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's true.
And lucky is spelled with an E. I don't know the significance of that.
I was gonna look that up to see if it was like an old, because they're old spellings that we've changed, over the years.
We're very good at this.
Hey.
Well, I only say that
someone else's job to point out, not ours.
I only say that because I had intended to do additional research on this because after we talk about the story, I want to talk about some dollar babies that were made, and I didn't get a chance to do as much research as I wanted. But back to the story, Darlene is pretty upset about everything that's going on because this is the braces are hundreds of dollars, like all of these small things are adding up.
She very sarcastically is like, oh my gosh, my lucky day. I'm going to take this quarter and I'm going to deal with the braces. I got to buy a new pair of shoes. I'm going to get my son that Sega, and everything's just going to be great now.
Yeah. And as she's walking through the lobby, as I said, that she mentions they have a single one-armed bandit. Which I love that terminology. And she's overcome with this instinct of being rid of it almost.
It's like she thinks of it as bad luck.
Yeah.
Or she thinks of luck as bad luck.
That could be. She puts it in and she pulls the lever and she walks away. She's thrown away the quarter because she'd wrestled with giving it to her son Paul as just kids love a quarter.
Yeah.
But no, let's just be rid of it. And she wins, hits the jackpot. If she'd only put in 3 quarters.
I know, when her coworker is like, oh my God, you won. That's insane. I put quarters in this thing all the time and never win, which made me feel like, is she trying to say that's her money?
It's very aggressive.
But no, she was like, it seems like everybody here gets along except for with the manager, maybe. But she's super excited for her. And she's like, oh yeah, too bad you didn't put in more money because then you would have gotten more than, she gets like $15 total. And we didn't mention she's having back problems too.
Yeah.
So there's like medical needs, not just for her son, but for her as well. So $15, from a quarter to $15 seems to have had an effect on her because it sort of changes her view of the lucky quarter.
And I like that you point out the pain that she is going through also, because it's at this point she wins that $15 and thinks, I could buy Paul a toy. And the reason she keeps focusing on getting something for Paul instead of Patsy is that Paul is kind of a quiet kid, and she refers to him as like being left behind, essentially.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity to do something special for him, even though this money could be used to help her, especially.
She's a good mom.
Yeah. But instead, she knows in her heart of hearts, she's got to go to the casino.
Silver City Casino.
I love the image of her apron full of this $15 in quarters going up to the roulette wheel and just saying, here you go.
She converts it to money, and this freaked me out because if the quarter is lucky, she just got rid of the quarter.
Well, she got rid of the quarter initially. I don't think she got that same quarter back when she won the jackpot.
I mean, we don't know.
We don't know.
How would she know which of, if it did come back, how would she know which of the $15 worth of quarters was her quarter?
Oh my God. What fresh hell is that? Spending your whole life going through $15 worth of quarters to figure out if you remembered from the lucky one is?
I would walk her. I'd have to buy like a special like vest or something, or saddlebags for like a human that are a little more fashionable, to always have $15 worth of quarter with me. Because if you don't know which one,
then you have to keep all of that lucky change.
Yeah. So what are the rules? Does it have to be on you? Does the luck, does it have a long lasting effect? Is that why she could convert it into bills and then continue to have, as we'll see here in a moment, streaks of luck?
Right. It's almost dreamlike the way it's coming together, you know?
You're right. Yeah.
It's so funny because as you're mentioning what are the rules, that's the first thought that occurs to me is, spoiler alert, we're talking about a vision right now. But it's so funny to explore this is kind of technically a no-risk way of exploring this magic, but she doesn't realize that at the time. So she decides she's going to place a bet. She's putting it all on the ranges. It's because you can bet on, instead of even odds, reds, blacks, individual numbers, you can select the sets of numbers.
Before we get into her strategy, are you a gambler, Josh?
I've been known to dabble in a little gambling. We gambled together in Canada.
True. And I found more value in keeping one of my Canadian dollar bills because they're colorful than I did trying to win more of them. I wouldn't consider myself a gambler.
Yeah.
Because I want, like, if I give my money to anything, I want to get something in exchange. And I just cannot I can't take the risk, man, of losing it all. Okay, I am a child of poverty. We're gonna get there because
I
I have
was
some thoughts about that for like some overall story
I
themes.
was gonna say I can relate powerfully to that sentiment for the same reason. A fun fact, I don't know if you know this about friend of the show, my mom, but my mom, when I was younger, worked as a slot machine technician on a riverboat. And so I
Hmm,
learned a lot about gambling. I have poker
interesting.
chips from the Diamond Lady riverboat when it closed down. And I remember there were two things that she taught me, and only one of them is something that I'll share on air. The other one you always got to keep a secret.
Okay.
The first one is that the odds of winning on a slot machine are set higher to win the closer you are to the front door.
What?
Yep. Then the people walking by hear the sounds of winning. And so that's why there are usually slot machines right there in the entrance, and they have higher odds of winning. Or at least they did in the 90s when I learned that fact.
Wow. Yeah, I wonder with, technology, what, if anything, has changed about
Right.
how those machines operate.
Mhm.
Huh. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. I thought it was neat. But the other valuable thing is if you go, whatever you take into a casino, only take what you are going to lose.
Yeah, that's just a really smart strategy. And I have gambled a couple times just because we were like at a family thing at the
Mhm.
casino for some reason. And when you're there and everyone else is doing it, peer pressure, you
Sure.
just got to do it too.
It's fun. I think it's
it's
fun.
an experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've tried the experience a few times. So Darlene is not having the experience I always have. She's actually doing really good, and she is not hesitating at all. She's like, nope, keep betting it all, and just trusts her instincts every time. There's no hesitation, no second guessing. And pretty soon she's at $576. And then she's at $1,728. And that's when the pit boss gets involved.
The wheel spinner is basically is like, ma'am, I can't put that amount.
It's a gambling waiter.
The gambling waiter said, I can't take your order. I need to speak with my manager.
There you go.
And so the pit boss comes over and makes her sign something with her name,
Okay,
her
when
address.
the pit boss was like, what's your name and address? I was like, is he going to kill her later? Is he going to have her killed for winning to get his money back? That's what they do, right?
Yes, yeah.
Another reason I don't gamble.
It's at that point that's when you should know that they're suspicious of you cheating.
Right,
Because that's
yeah.
but she doesn't. I like that it's not addressed because she has full on no idea that that's what they're doing.
She is so, I'm just going to say it the way it came to my brain, mouthy
Yeah.
in the scene. Because, presumably, like, you let the person whose job it is to talk to people like you because you're winning big and it's
Mhm.
weird. You let them do their job. And then if they're shitty about it, if you want to be sassy back, I get that. But she's instantly just like, fuck off.
It's gambler's momentum. That's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is. When we can't pause. I do love that every time from this point on, it stops another time for a length of time, and it's just quiet
Mhm.
in between. Like there's no other.
Because she's drawing a crowd to her.
When people start touching her hands to get her
I
lucky,
hate that.
that's so gross. That's
It
so
is
gross.
so gross. It reminds me of like a Dune movie where it's like they see their Messiah.
Spit
and
in my mouth. That's what they do in Dune, right? That's like a sign of honor, spitting in someone's mouth.
Close enough, Josh.
I read it, but when she signs her name and all this stuff, she realizes that her hand is shaking violently, but she is speaking with a complete level head and calm voice. It's so good. And she places her ranged bet again and wins. And this time, she's won up to 24,000 this time?
Yeah, it was something around 25,000.
Yeah.
And then she's like, all right, keep going. And the pit boss is like, hell no. He's scared.
My favorite of all the reactions, my favorite is it's described as the one guy in the back who's like, yeah.
Yeah.
That was me. This is based on a true story, and I
Okay.
was that guy.
Actually, the pit boss, oh, what's it called? Dang it, I can't think of the word. He like looks her up and down. He's assessing her, but there's
Mhm.
like a fun, cool word for it that I'm forgetting. Anyway, he gives her the once over and instantly like knows her class status.
Mhm.
And he's like, basically, ma'am, no offense, but you really should stop now.
Like,
You need this
everyone is
money.
begging her to
Please
stop.
stop. And she doesn't want to. And so she demands that she gets to play the maximum amount that they are willing to let her bet.
Yeah. That's even better than when she's like, ma'am, we can't take a bet that size. All right, what's the max I can do without missing a beat?
Yep. And that turns out to be what, $800?
Yeah. And she puts it all on a single number. 3, I think. I forgot to write it down. It says what number she puts it on. And it wasn't 19, and that's all I cared about. And the wheel spins, and she feels everyone go silent. They're on the edge of their seat, the balls clicking and bouncing. And then all of a sudden, back in the room. It was all just a fantasy.
I was so sad.
Yeah.
I wanted her to have that money because as you're listening to her talk about all the things that she would do with $15 even, it's just sad when it's like, oh, none of that really happened. That was so cool. She was so cool.
What was the when she has the last time we kind of check in with her, like what she'll do with her winnings. It is for her family.
Yeah.
All of it. Because the last thing, she is closing her eyes and she's thinking about what she'd do for herself, and she thinks there's nothing else she needs.
And
she's very lucky in her life.
And it's interesting because they live in poverty, you get the sense that there's something that is needed for her family is always on her mind. Even if she takes care of something, there's always something else right around the corner that is going to set them back or keep them from, pulling out of being in financial hardship.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy, and we get to see her finish out her day. And the whole time I am anticipating, like, okay, is it actually gonna go the way? I didn't know if that's what this was gonna do, if the fantasy was gonna play out into reality.
Because the quarter is there, but the note isn't.
Right.
So it's just that different touch enough that King will always give us to make you uneasy. But no, she is going through her day and is visited by her kids because Patsy needed to walk Paul to, I forgot.
I think Patsy walks Paul home from school or something. That's right. But he's really sick today, which is not an infrequent thing for him. He has terrible allergies. And Patsy's a 13-year-old. And so she's walking in all sass. She takes after her mom. She's mouthy.
That was just phenomenal. She says, like, leave your brother alone. And she said, yeah, I'll leave him alone, but what do I get?
Yeah. And she's bratty right up until the point where Darlene just has this visible moment of, I can't fucking take this right now. And her daughter is old enough that she kind of recognizes, like, oh, something's going on. Mom's upset, and immediately is trying, like, backpedaling, like, I'm just kidding, Mom. It's okay. 'Cause she's being a brat to her brother and complaining about him. And Darlene's like, oh, your brother's sensitive.
Yeah. As a parent now, I've definitely found that voice.
Yeah.
I'm letting you know that I'm no longer on board for this game. All right. She does win her daughter over a little bit, though, because somebody in one of the rooms left a fashion or makeup magazine.
They're gonna go look at it.
It's the current issue, so it's an even bigger deal.
Man, that's so, like, oh, that makes me so sad too. It's such a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's someone's magazine they left.
Right. And she gave Paul the quarter and just for him to do whatever. And then they hear the sound of the slot machine, and right away Patsy's like, you're an idiot. Mom's gonna be so mad at you.
Well, because she never plays the slots. I think we mentioned that, or I don't know if we actually did, when the coworker was like, freaking out that she
Yeah.
won because she also was like, "You never play." So I assumed that Darlene had schooled her kids a lot on, okay, I know we live
Hmm.
right by all these casinos and everything's about gambling. Do not gamble.
And her first reaction when she hears the clicks of the sevens locking into place, the bells start going off, the change coming out, is very coolly, very calmly thinking, well, this friend of mine can watch the kids tonight. I have plans now.
Yeah,
It rules.
she's gonna treat herself.
And it's this level of comfort and assurity kind of comes over her as
Hmm.
like, all right, I've seen how it plays out. I just got to follow this path. Here we go. It ends with her taking her lucky quarter. She's gonna go follow through with her fantasy.
Hmm. And it ends with, you mentioned earlier, she had this thought about what, I don't need anything. I
Hmm.
don't need my ex-husband back.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Which it's very sad how much it's clear that she sacrifices
Hmm.
for her family, and how much, again, the when she has a win, it immediately goes to them first.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Josh.
Yeah.
So as I was reading this and thinking about the themes, and like one I picked up on, of course, was poverty, because I could relate to some of the experience that she was describing, but from a child's perspective. So made me think of my mom too. And the other one was money can't buy happiness. I guess I feel like that's a theme of the story, but I want to know what Darlene thinks of that idea because she resists the idea of luck. I mentioned earlier she's doesn't like thinking about life that way. And the part of the book, what she says actually is luck was a joke, even good luck was just bad luck with its hair combed different.
It's a great
It
line.
is. For me, I guess I was thinking, like, tying this theme to poverty. Is it because when you are living in that experience, is it just too disappointing to have faith in something like luck, like something that could be that's not tangible?
Yeah, I think you're definitely in the right zone there. I think that this is she lives in a world of every day she walks into a hotel room and thinks there's $100 in there. She has like forces her to put that positivity. It's not mentioned that she does it like to make herself happier in the day.
Mhm.
It is just mentioned that she does
Mhm.
it. And I think that this definitely falls in that line of somebody who, on one hand, money will fix
A lot.
a lot,
Yeah.
but those things are still a distraction from your life.
Mhm.
They're problems to be solved, and your life isn't. You know,
Yeah.
your personal life is so much more complicated than that. And I almost think that money can't buy happiness in and of itself is almost a reflection of it won't buy happiness, because if you have everything you want, you just got to deal with you.
Yeah,
If you're
I
not ready to
really
face yourself, money is not going to do you any favors.
I really like that because it's kind of a hopeless tone of the book, but that
Hmm.
makes it not feel that way. Like that makes it feel better because it's the way she's described as being so practical and the way we see her think about things that supports that. Yet at the same time, we went like most of this short story is her fantasy,
Hmm.
her hopeful fantasy. And when she opens those envelopes, she's, the feelings, the emotions she's having are hope and anticipation. So, yeah, I was wondering, I was like, okay, so she feels like money will change her life, but that happiness piece, I like the way you described that.
It is those honeypots are her version of gambling.
That's
They're like
true.
scratch off
Yeah.
tickets. She rips them open and sees what's
Uh,
inside.
that's true. Ooh.
Oh boy.
It's, there was something else in this that kind of like tied to death. Did you think about that? Did you catch that
No.
one? It was the when Paul puts the coin in the machine and they hear the sound of the coins falling, and it's described as metal slag falling on top of a coffin.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, right after that thought, she's having that, like, I don't need, I've got everything I need. I don't need him. I don't need whatever.
I'm gonna throw a theory out
Okay.
because you know how, especially when we get into the world of a short story, we try to flesh out the world to an insane degree.
Yes. Because
I
that's the joy of a short story.
That's our favorite
It
part of
leaves
it.
you with all that space.
Is there a chance that the ex-husband left because the way she explains it is left for a job and never came back
Hmm.
or something to that effect? I wonder if more money was a reason he left.
Mm.
And so that's part of why more money is always a damning thing.
Yeah.
More money cost her something.
Yeah.
And she's always the victim of it.
I like that too. Yeah.
That's why these short stories rule. I want to get into CM. First of all, thank you for that was a great discussion.
Oh, you're welcome.
I want to talk about something that this story in particular lends itself to, which is adaptations.
Yes.
Lucky Quarter was one of the Dollar Babies that there have been several adaptations. I know of at least 4.
And we watched, how many did we see for the 2 film festivals? For the 2 Stephen King Dollar Baby ones.
Collectively, I think we've only seen one.
I only remember
of it.
one.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think we really liked the actress.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really good
It
adaptation.
was.
This is one of those stories that I recently, I don't know when the interview is going to come out. It'll come out in the future when you hear this episode. Interviewed Tony Northrup, who wrote the Dollar Baby book, on the Dollar Baby sequel book. And we were discussing, are there Dollar Babies that you see are done more often because they're more financially accessible?
Mhm.
For instance, Stationary Bike would be a lot of visual storytelling work. You
Yeah.
have to have a real budget for it. But we've seen a dozen Man with Flowers. Man Who
Yeah,
Loved
that's the one that
Flowers.
popped into my head instantly.
Right. So this is another one of those stories that's so accessible because it is a human story at its core. And so Tony was letting me know that the most recent Dollar Baby version of this that he's seen was made with a budget of $100.
Wow.
And he said it's great.
I kind of wish, this is too much, I'm sorry, but I wish it was made with a quarter.
But you're on the exact right track of why I was so excited about it. The idea of really shoestring budget making a story about this
Shoestring
kind of poverty.
budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a strong idea if you can really lean into it and make it work. If there's another festival, maybe we'll get a chance to see it.
That'd be cool.
It was shown at King Con. So
Okay.
the people who went to Vegas got to see it.
If listeners, if you're like, what are they talking about? Dollar Babies? Josh, do you just want to briefly kind of describe what that is and where they can hear us interview and talk more about that?
Yeah, we've talked about so many Dollar Baby projects. So if you just search Dollar Baby on our feed, you'll get several episodes that'll pop up. We've interviewed several directors. Essentially, it was a program Stephen King had where you could have the rights to a film of his or a short story of his for a year for $1. You just couldn't make any money off of it.
Yeah. Should we rate this thing?
Yeah, let's do it. Go for it.
I liked this short story. It's more for the discussion we had about it, which is something that I feel like our discussions on this podcast always elevate a story for me. It's not one I would necessarily revisit, and I don't know that you could get a lot out of revisiting it unless it's just been so long and you're going back through everything's Eventual and you just read all of them, then sure. But I would give it, for that reason, 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Fantastic. I'm kind of in that same boat. It's a fun story. I don't think I'm inspired to pick it up anytime soon, or it's not one that I will tell anybody about. I'm not going to be recommending this be the first one someone read out of this series. But I like it. I liked the magic quarter. And I like what it says about this woman that is so willing to deny providence and then ultimately is given the gift she truly wants and is still unhappy with it. That's a fun bad ending still. So I guess on that note, it still really fits with the book.
Mhm.
But all of that aside, I am gonna give it a 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
And that is it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode, where we will be covering, you guys, Wizard in Glass. And we're going to be reading through part 1. For Joshua Kahn, I'm CM Alexander, reminding you, oh, lucky me. Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Lucky Quarter. We hope you enjoyed it. Before you guys message me, I do realize that saddlebags, but for humans, so they're a little more fashionable, are just purses. I don't know, I just got excited. As always, we would love to know your thoughts on the story. You can get in touch with us a couple different ways. You can send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com, and you can follow us on all the social media platforms. Search Derry Public Radio. We also have an Etsy store with fun merchandise, etsy.com/derrypublicradio, and make sure you follow us on our Patreon to stay up to date with all of our bonus content. You can also chat with us on our Discord. The link for that is in the show notes. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.